back, everybody. AFUR here with Project 68. It's been a little while since I've made a video. I've had some stuff come up that I haven't been able to work on the car. But getting back into it, what I'm going to be working on today is putting in sound deadening inside the car. What I'm going to be using is Kilmat 80 mil for the floor. I have some Kilmat 50 that I'll probably use for the roof. And the sail panels, and probably inside the trunk. But today I'm going to try and get down all of the floor. If you've watched the previous videos in the car, that when I purchased it from the shop, it was media blasted and then sprayed with Pour 15 gray paint, gray primer paint. On the interior, I've gone in and used Rust-Oleum flat black spray paint or satin black spray paint to cover the floor pans. So let's go ahead and look inside the car and see what we've got to work with. All right, so here is the inside of the car. Like I said, it's been sprayed with satin black Rust-Oleum paint. And there's the Kilmat. I'm just kind of laying it out to kind of see how it fits in. Here is the firewall insulation pad. Like I said, most of these holes for the push pins I had to drill myself. I think there was only one that I was able to use that was already in there, so this was a little bit of a pain to put in. So it is easier to do it like this. There's nothing in the way. You don't have to dig around anything. I didn't have to remove anything. I had to remove my brake pedal. That was all I had to remove. That's the only thing that was really in there. So it was a good time for me to put this in. Same thing with the Kilmat. It's a perfect time for me to put it in before I put anything else in the car. Everything's already out, so it's a good time to put it in. So the only thing I really need to do, like I said, since it's been recently sprayed, I know it's pretty dry. I know there's not oil inside the car. I know doesn't have any grease other than from me walking into it. So the only thing I really need to do right now is to vacuum it out and clean out the dust. So I'll get working on that. I'm not going to videotape that. I mean, it's pretty obvious how to vacuum the inside of a car. If you don't know how to do that, you probably shouldn't really be wrenching on anything. So I'm going to go ahead and vacuum this out, get all of this dust out, and then we'll get started on installing the Kilmat. All right, so there we are. We are cleaned up now. All the dust is picked up. Like I said, this car, the inside of the car has been recently painted with the Rust-Oleum, so it's pretty dry. I haven't been getting in and out. It hasn't been driven. It doesn't have a drivetrain in it, so it's not gone anywhere. It's been inside of a enclosed portable garage, so it's nice and dry in here. There's nothing in here that's going to prevent the Kilmat from sticking. No oils, no grease, no anything like that. So here's the Kilmat that I'm working with. Got this off of Amazon, and also got this little roller kit from Amazon. So let's see how this works. All right, so here's the first one. Like I said, I've still got the backing on it. Probably going to start with this one. This is the first time I'm installing Kilmat, so I've watched some videos. What I have read is that all of these little squares, when you put it in, you want to roll it enough to where all of these little squares are gone. You want this as flat as possible to get rid of as much air as possible, so you don't have any issues with rust developing between the Kilmat and the floor pan. You also want to make sure that any of these little holes like this, you run this in. You're going to have to cut this out eventually. What I'm going to do is use probably this really small one and push into this as much as possible so I have an indent to know where my holes are after I get done. That's the way I'm going to put it in. I'm going to test it on this one first. You know, I'll put this one in, and then work my way over. I'll probably work over the transmission tunnel and then work left to right and then basically front to back in the car. So I'll run all the way over and then I'll run down to see how easy this is to lay next to each other. I've read that you don't want to overlap it if you can avoid it, because again you run the risk of getting air gaps in between the two layers of Kilmat. So I don't want to do that. But like I said, this is the first time I've done it, so I want to make a video of how this goes in. Also for other people that this is the first time they're doing it. So I've seen a lot of videos, they say they're doing it and then they zoom through, all they show is that they're putting it in, they don't really talk about the process itself. So I want to kind of explain the process a little bit better than what I've seen in some of the other videos. So now that I've got this in pretty well, I'm going to lift it back. And this exposes the Kilmat itself. And this is what you're actually working with. So I'm just going to lay down the top part of it, get it stuck in place. And I'm kind of doing this how I've done vinyl stripes in the past. I haven't peeled off all of it yet. So I've got the, as you see, I've got the backing still on, and I'm going to get this started before I actually peel the rest of it off. And as you can see, we're starting to get rid of, I don't want to go all the way down, starting to get rid of those little dimples. This one is kind of a very hard rubber, and these two are metal. So you can see how much quicker this puts it down and kind of spreads it out. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure on with these two, and it's already getting it pretty far in there. And this little thin one seems to be working really good to get it into some of these smaller pockets. And there we go. Now you can see all of those squares are pretty much gone. And so I did read on the instructions that you want the temperature of your floor pan to be at least 60 degrees. I'm in Southern California right now. It's pretty warm today. I'm pretty well sweating. So now I peel it off. I'm going to work this sheet kind of from where I've already done it down to where I'm exposing it, and peel it off as I go down. This should help prevent any wrinkles. It is pretty pliable from what it feels like. So it feels like it sits in and it fills in all of those gaps. This is going to be a pretty long process to get the whole interior done. As you see now, I'm coming into one of these little ribs. And this is the seam that's got the seam sealer on it between the upper firewall floor pan and the base floor pan itself. So you really want to get into all of these seams and get this nice and seated as much as you can. Get all of these little bubbles out. This is the only one I haven't used yet. And all these they're just a little bit wider than each other. So you can use whichever one you feel is necessary, depending on where you're at in the car, where your seam is, and how you want to fit it in to the contours of your floor pan. This little one, this little thin one, seems to work really, really well for the edges because it's nice and thin. It's able to get into these small little creases. All right, and there's our first one. So as you can see, let's do a little. That's hitting on the transmission tunnel on the passenger side. So you can tell that it deadens it up pretty good, which is what it's supposed to do. All right, so I'm going to move the camera a little bit, get it a little bit out of my way, but hopefully you guys can still see what's going on. And probably for the rest of the video, I'm just going to speed through it until I get to a point to where I have to dimple these out. And like I said, I'll probably use this one. This one seems to work really well for getting into the creases. This little small one. Probably also use my fingers a little bit to kind of push that in, because like I said, this stuff is pretty pliable, and you want to mark any of these holes that you have for reference, so you know where your holes are, your drain holes, bolt holes for your seat belts and stuff like that. You want to have those marked. So once you get done putting the insulation in, putting the Kilmat down, or your sound deadening, whichever one you use, so you can go in, and once you start to assemble your interior, you're not hunting for any of those holes. You have them marked out, and what I'll do, I'll come in with a knife or a punch, and I'll cut these out a little bit to get rid of them. I'll probably pause it on that next one. Once I get there, I'm cutting it out on how I'm doing that. So we'll get moving along with the rest of this installation, and hopefully I can get this done today. Okay, so here is that opening that we talked about. So it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy just to push your finger through there and push that out. And there's also a bolt hole here and right here. So I'm gonna go get a little scribe, a little punch, and I'll put a hole right here in these two bolt holes, just so I know where they're at. Okay, so couldn't find my scribe, but I did find a small little screwdriver, which will work just as well. All right, and there's one, and there is two. So that's going to be the process I use around the shifter opening, around all of my openings for my drain pans, openings for the seat, the holes for the seat bolts, and all that stuff. That's the easiest process. So like I said, this punches out pretty easy. Anything that's that big, it punches pretty easy. This stuff is pretty flexible, pretty soft. So like I said, I'll zoom through the rest of this, and then we'll show a finished product. So here we go. Let's get back to it. All right, so now we're to a point to where we're running the seam from the bottom of floor plan onto the transmission tunnel. And like I said, you don't want to, from everything that I've read, you don't want to overlap this too much. But what it seems like it'll do is it does fold over fairly well. So what I'm going to do is fold that over as a little bit of a template on how to cut it out with a pair of scissors, so I don't overlap that seam very much. And then I'll just continue out. I'll probably use some remnant stuff, maybe if I have to cover up that little spot on the top of the transmission tunnel that's not going to be covered, or I'll just leave it out. It's not going to create that much heat right there. Actually, come to think of it, it might, because that's right behind the back of the engine, so that might be a hot spot. I'm going to see if I'm going to cover that up or not. Kind of depends on what I have for remnants left over, if I'm going to cover that. Or I might go this way. Actually, yeah. I think I'll do it that way. And then I'll make a strip here to cover this up. So like I said, so this folds over pretty well. I'm probably going to find a way, get something to hold that out of the way. So I'll probably do it like that. And then, like I said, I'll just fold this back so I don't overlap it, and then I'll trim it with a pair of scissors. All right, so there we are. We've trimmed it with a pair of scissors, and I haven't stuck it down yet, so I'll start from this side, just like I have been doing, and I'll peel that back, and I'll get that lined up as much as I can. Then I'll work my way that way, peeling off the backing as I go along. All right, so there's that seam. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. There's a little bit of spot to where it moved a little bit before I really sealed it down. That's pretty good. I mean, like I said, this is sound deadening. It's extra. It's more than what came with the car initially. I think it's going to make a huge difference no matter what, even with that little bitty gap. It's not going to be all the heat coming through there, and their surrounding Kilmat's going to hold it pretty well. It's going to sound deaden, what we need it to do. So that should be the last little bit of stoppage that I need to do. I think that pretty well shows you how to put it in, what you've got to do to the little contours. I probably could have overlapped that a little bit, maybe 1/8 of an inch of overlap probably would have been fine. I'll probably put a little bit of overlap on this side. I'm going to work from that side in on this one, so I know a little bit more on how I need to lay it down. I've got a little hole up there, a drain hole, or maybe for the antenna. I'm not sure what that's for. Actually, the antenna comes through the side. So I'm not quite sure what that is. Maybe a condensation line or something that comes from the engine for the air conditioning and the heat. Not quite sure exactly what that hole is for, but like I did over here, I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to pop a hole through it for the screw, and then we'll be done. I'm not sure if you can even see the hole that I'm talking about, but it's right there at the bottom of the firewall insulation. So like I said, I'm pretty well done with any instruction on how I'm doing this. So from here on out, I'm probably just gonna cut through it and then get what I have and then lay it down, and the rest of it should go pretty smoothly. Now that I've got an idea of how to overlap it and stuff like that, how to trim it back out. So let's go ahead and start blasting through the rest of this stuff, speed up the video as we go along, and then hopefully get this thing finished today. All right, here we go. All right, so I've got the about the front quarter of it done. I did go ahead and start overlapping some of this. As you can see, it's overlapped here, and then I had to cut out some small patches for the corners that weren't covered up, just because it's, you know, it's a rectangle piece of sound deadening, and the car is textured, so you're never going to get it to line up perfectly straight. There are some sections that aren't going to get covered up. You know, that little hole up there is not going to get covered up. That's not a big issue for me. I'm going to try and cover, you know, 90 to 95% of the floor pan. So as you see down in here is where it's overlaying. What I've decided to do is work from the outsides to the inside. That seems to be the easiest way to put it down. So I'll work the outside of the floor pan and the outside of the seat riser, the outside of the back. I'll put that layer in first, and then I'll work a layer in, and then I'll do the same thing on the passenger side. I'll do the two on the outside, work those first, and then I'll come in and I'll cover the transmission tunnel. That seemed to work the best for the center, because then I could kind of split the tunnel in half and lay it this way, and then lay it this way, and then trim off what I don't need. And then I can use these little remnants for some of the sections, like up here where I had to cut out a little triangle. So that's the way I'm going to finish it off. Not really going to film any of that. I think you get the idea of how to put this stuff in. These two rollers seem to work the best. This one is the rubbery one is kind of too hard. I mean, it's good to start it and get that first trim piece down to get it in place. It's good to hold it in place, but it doesn't seem to really get down into the material. You can see some spots. Let me see if I can find one. Over here where it looks like the aluminum is coming apart. And I'm pretty sure that's just the aluminum backing that's separating from the butyl rubber underneath. The butyl rubber is set in place, but you can see there's a couple little pockets where this is torn, and I think that's okay. That's just the aluminum backing that's not as flexible and not as soft as the butyl rubber that's underneath. So the rubber is in contact with the floor pan. I think that aluminum is just separating from the butyl rubber, so it's kind of sticking up. Like I said, you want to get this as adhered as possible to your floor pan, so you don't have air gaps between the butyl rubber and the floor pan, which is where you're going to get rust build up and you're going to have problems later down the road. So you want to try and get as much as that reduced as possible. You don't want to have to try and tear this stuff out in 5 years because you're finding that it's bubbling and you're getting rust underneath. That's just not exactly what you want to do that for. So you want to take your time, do it right the first time, get all this stuff down, adhered as much as possible to the floor pan. Like I said, to double and triple check your work. So I'm going to go ahead and take a break. I'm going to get some lunch, then I'm going to come back and hit this again. I'm not going to film the rest of it. Once I get it done, I'll come in and I'll film what it looks like at the end and kind of give a little more of a touch-up and maybe notes on the end. So we'll see what it looks like when it's finished. All right. All right, so I've got all the Kilmat down. I used every piece of the 80 mil. I believe it's 35 square feet is what the box calls for. One thing I did notice, I'll put this in the beginning of the video also. The best thing to do is when you're laying it down, start on the inside of your creases. That helps you get rid of your bubbles, any little air gaps that you have in there. If you work from the lowest portion of the crease to the outside, it helps prevent you from getting the bubbles. If you do get a bubble that you can't get out, what I found I could do is just take a little knife and cut a little slit on the inside of the bubble and then work it back down. It gets the air bubble out. The rubber kind of seals onto itself. So I don't think I have any bubbles left in there. Nothing that I can see. What I did work on towards the end is working from the outside of the car to the inside of the car. Seemed to work best. Also had to get some cuts on some of the hard edges. Put a little diagonal cut in it so I could fold the Kilmat on top of itself. Overlapping it turned out to be inevitable. There was quite a few spots where I had to overlap it a little bit. I used the rollers, the big metal roller, the heavy one, and flattened it down as much as possible. I don't have any overlaps on the edge of the car. They're all kind of on the inside, so it shouldn't affect laying down the carpet at all. It's pretty thin. I was able to smash it down pretty well. Using the metal rollers, just going over it and over it and over it, got it pretty flat. So I don't think it's going to be an issue moving forward. I don't think it's going to be an issue with putting the carpet in. Like I said, it's 80 mils, so it's not super thick. So let's go ahead and look on the inside of the car and see what we're working with. See how it finished out, see what it looks like. All right, so here is the inside of the car with the Kilmat laid down. Like I said, I started just below the firewall insulation. Like I said, I worked from the outside, from both outsides to the inside. I did the tunnel last. There's a couple spots here on the corners of the seat risers that I didn't patch. It just really wasn't worth the hassle of trying to cut that out. As you see, the center of the tunnel is kind of patchworked together. Like I said, working from the outside to the inside seemed to work the best. So it's pretty well sound deadening now. It sounds a lot more more solid. It doesn't kind of have that metal ring to it that you normally get. All right, so that's all of the 80 mil put in. Like I said, I'll use the 50 mil. I'll start on the inside of the roof using the 50 mil. I've got more sheets of the 50 mil. I think it covers 50 square feet, where the 80 mil only covers 35 square feet. So I'll be able to cover more of the car with the 50. With the roof, I'm not as concerned with the noise coming through like you get from the firewall and from the floor pans, from the road noise and the engine noise. So I'm just looking for a little bit of heat dissipation, so I don't get as much heat coming through the roof as I would. I'll make another video when I do the inside of the roof. But for now, I'm pretty happy with how the 80 mil went in. It took most of the day. Pretty sweaty. It's been pretty warm down here in Southern California, so got a pretty good workout in here doing it. But I think it was the right time to do it, even though it was hot for me. The temperature of the car was right. You don't want to do this stuff when it's cold. The instructions say that the metal needs to be 60 degrees or warmer for it to adhere properly, or you got to go in with a heat gun and heat up the metal, and that's just no fun. That just takes a lot of time. But from the sound of it, you can tell, you know, banging on the floor pan now, it doesn't sound as metallic. It sounds much duller, which is what we're hoping to get out of the sound deadening. So this is another step down. I'll do like I said, I'll do the rest of the Kilmat on the roof and in the trunk once I can clean the trunk out. Next up is going to be wiring. So that's going to be an American Auto Wire complete rewire kit. That's probably going to take quite a few videos to get done. So look for that coming up next. As always, like and share and comment and follow on the video. Helps me out as a creator. If you want to see something specific, hopefully I haven't done it yet, put it in the comments. You know, I want to do this to return some of my knowledge onto the community. You know, help out other enthusiasts, help out other people that want to work on their cars, help out people that want to do stuff on their own. So, follow the videos. Have a good Mustang day. Love y'all. Take care.